afternoon, everybody. We are going to read the second half of Civil War on Sunday this week. It's by Mary Pope Osborne, and it's part of the Magic Treehouse series. It's number 21. Last week we read the first 5 chapters, 1 chapter a day. This week we're going to do the same and read chapters 6 through 10, and then we will be finished with this book that's going along with our U.S. history study of the Civil War. Okay? So we are on chapter 6, Keep Low. And if you remember back to last week, Jack and Annie, they are our main characters. They were transported by a magic treehouse, which they climb up this little rope ladder, go up to the magic treehouse that will transport them anywhere they want to go. Not only anywhere in the world, but any time period. So they went from, they started out, I believe they were in Pennsylvania, is where they live. And they went back in, they live in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. They went back in time to the Civil War, and they landed in Virginia. So they're in Virginia during the Civil War, and they are 7 and 8 years old. Jack is 8 and Annie is 7. So they're your guys' age, or a little older. And so now they're back in the Civil War. They're seeing soldiers that are wounded, and they decided to stay and help out. And do you remember the name of the nurse that they're helping? She's a very famous nurse. She's called the Angel of the Battlefield, and her name was Clara Barton. You guys had in your packets last week, some of you guys had coloring sheets that had to do with Clara Barton. Some of you guys had reading passages that you could use your highlighter and highlight some of the important information about Clara Barton. So Jack and Annie are going to help Clara as she helps the wounded soldiers. Also, their task while they are in the Civil War, they have been tasked to, remember they got the letter from Morgan, and it said, "Dear Jack and Annie, Camelot is in trouble. To save the kingdom, please find these four special kinds of writing for my library. Something to follow, something to send, something to learn, something to lend." And remember, they found something to follow. They got that list that told them, it gave them a list of instructions to follow. I just want to remind you of that if I can find that. Oh, okay. The nurse pulled out of her pocket a piece of paper and handed it to Annie. Annie read the list to Jack. Be cheerful, which means like be happy. Lessen sorrow and give hope. So take away some of the sadness, give people hope that things will be better soon. Be brave. Put aside your own feelings and don't give up. So they found their type of writing that was something to follow, and it was the list. So now they've been trying to do that. They were trying to be cheerful when they helped the wounded soldiers in the tent, in the battlefield hospital, the field hospital. They were trying to be cheerful. They were trying to give hope. So now we're on chapter 6, and it's entitled, "Keep Low!" Exclamation mark. The wagon jerked and swayed as it bumped over the dry ground. Jack felt as though he were frying in the hot sunlight. Dust from the road filled his throat and eyes. And remember, they are so hot because when they went back in time, they're also wearing the clothing of that time. So they don't have on shorts and tank tops and flip-flops. They're hot because it's hot outside, and they're wearing the heavy clothing. The boom of cannons grew louder and louder. Jack heard popping sounds too, like the noise of firecrackers. "What's that popping noise?" he shouted, blinded by the dust and blinded by the dust and sunlight. "Musket fire," said Clara. Jack remembered that muskets were long, old-fashioned guns. Do you guys remember I think it was the very first field trip that we went on, when we went down to the park, and they had the demonstrations of writing with a quill and how they used to cook the food. They had like the historical days down at the park, and they showed us the musket. They showed us how to load it and how long it took. It took about a minute to load the musket and be ready to fire it. That's what they were, yeah. So that's what they're talking about, the musket. And I have a video that you're gonna watch about that also. Jack remembered that muskets were long, old-fashioned guns. What were those flashes? Asked Annie. Jack tried to open his eyes and see what she was talking about. He saw bright flashes of light in the distance and puffs of smoke in the sky. So here they are in their wagon with Clara going down the dusty road, and they are hearing cannons. They are seeing flashes of light and smoke from the musket fire. Cannon shells exploding, said Clara. Barton, shells are like small bombs. They have ruined much farmland. Jack squinted at the passing countryside. The ground was filled with ugly holes. Long ditches were cut through the fields. Did the shells make those ditches too? He asked. No, those are trenches. The soldiers dug for a battle, Clara said. Each side digs their own. Day after day, they sit in the trenches, firing their muskets at one another. So you guys know what a ditch is, right? So you dig these ditches or trenches in the dirt so that you can be lower down for a battle. So you're not just sitting up and exposed. You're kind of hiding down in the ditch or the trench. Jack tried to imagine how terrible it would be to sit in a trench all day waiting to be shot or waiting to shoot someone. So stop for just a minute there and think, just like Jack is doing. Just imagine, okay? You've got to sit in this ditch all day, and your job is to shoot at someone and try not to get shot yourself. So that sounds miserable. We have to get some water, said Clara. She drove the wagon to a narrow creek. A stream of water flowed downhill, running over rocks. The wagon came to a halt. Jack heard a whistling sound, then another. Keep low, cried Clara. What's that? Jack asked. Cannon fire, she said. Jack and Annie crouched down in the driver's seat. Jack felt a rush of panic. So, do you guys know what that means? A rush of panic, that all of a sudden, when your chest feels tight, it's like extreme. You're very, very scared, very anxious, and your stomach does a flip and your chest gets tight. He pulled out their list. His hands were shaking as he read, Be brave. Oh, great, he thought. Another cannon shell whizzed overhead, then another. The ground exploded over and over in flashes of light. Dirt clods flew everywhere. Clouds of smoke and more dust filled the air. The horses neighed and whinnied. Be brave, thought Jack. Be brave. So that is the end of chapter 6. And I'm going to show you a couple of photographs, again, from this book that I have. This is Great Photographers of the Civil War. So sad that we're not in class to be able to look at this together, because I had this out on our history shelf. Okay, here's one of the things I wanted to show you. This says Union soldiers entrenched along the west bank of the river in Fredericksburg in May of 1863. So let's see what year. Let's see what year they are. It doesn't say what year they went back to. It says in here that the Civil War was 1861 to 1865, but it doesn't say which year in particular they landed in. So we're just going to pretend that it was 1863. And this is in Fredericksburg. So you'll see here all these men with their guns sitting down in the trench. So when they say they sit in a trench, here it is. I'm trying to see if you guys can see. So take that in. That is these guys sitting, all the soldiers sitting down in that ditch in the trench. And you see how they're lower than ground level and they have their guns. So that is what Jack was talking about there. Let's see what else we have here that I wanted to show you. I marked several pages here. Okay. So here we have a cannon. And you can see, if you look closely, down here at the bottom, you see the shells, the cannonballs down there. And we're going to talk more about weaponry this afternoon. That's going to be your assignment for this afternoon, is weaponry. See if I have anything else that I want to show you. Okay. The 2nd Artillery in Virginia, June 1862, Battery A, 2nd U.S. Artillery after Battle of Fair Oaks. Here's another picture. You can see their soldiers here. Okay. And maybe it for today. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Oh, and I did find a picture of the wounded soldiers in the tent. So this shows, you know how Jack and Annie, they went into the tents that had the soldiers that needed to be tended to? This says surgery on a wounded soldier, Morris Island, South Carolina, July 1863. So here's a tent. So this will be part of the field hospital. Remember we talked about the field hospital. It's a temporary hospital that's set up in the battlefield. So here they are in this tent performing surgery. Can you believe it? So that would be like the tents where Annie and Jack went with Clara Barton to help. Okay? So today, here's what you're gonna do. I have a video that's linked on the website about Civil War weaponry. And that is very interesting. I want you to watch that video. It's only 4 minutes. And then you have this worksheet here that you can do. This has an actual photograph from the Civil War of the soldiers and the cannon. And then here down below is a drawing. So the drawing, you can color this drawing. I want you to see the photograph. And then the drawing down below, you can color. You're welcome to label. You're welcome to write something down below. If you'd like to write something here, you can cut this out and glue it in your cultural copybook. Okay, so watch the video on the guns, and then you can color your cannon. And that'll be for today. Okay, so tomorrow we will read chapter 7.